In Genoa City, power and control are everything, and no one understands that better than Victor Newman. For years, Victor has built his empire by staying one step ahead of everyone else. He doesn't just react to problems, he creates solutions before anyone even realizes there is a problem. But sometimes, even Victor's confidence leads him into situations that can spiral out of control. This time, the situation revolves around a familiar conflict: Victor's ongoing rivalry with Jack Abbott. Their relationship has never been peaceful. It has always been filled with tension, competition, and personal battles that often go far beyond business. But lately, things have taken a more personal turn, especially involving Jack's marriage. Victor believes that Jack's stability gives him strength. So in Victor's mind, if Jack's personal life starts falling apart, it weakens him completely. That is where the idea begins. Instead of confronting Jack directly or attacking him through business moves, Victor chooses a much more secretive and risky approach. And that decision leads him straight to Patty. Patty is not someone who blends into the background. She is unpredictable, unstable, and extremely dangerous when given the right motivation. But that is exactly why Victor considers her useful. In his eyes, Patty is someone who can create chaos without being easily traced back to him. A perfect tool for a hidden agenda. Victor brings Patty into his plan with one clear objective: disrupt Jack's marriage. The idea is not just to create small misunderstandings, but to fully destabilize Jack's personal life in a way that causes lasting damage. Victor believes this will give him the upper hand he needs. At first, everything seems like a simple arrangement between them. Victor offers Patty money in exchange for carrying out the task. He assumes she will take the offer, complete the job, and then leave Genoa City quietly, disappearing back into the shadows as she has done before. Victor is confident about the outcome. In his experience, people who deal in secrets and manipulation usually do not stay around longer than necessary. Once the money is in their hands, they vanish. That is what he expects from Patty as well. But Patty is not predictable in the way Victor assumes. She has her own mindset, her own intentions, and a level of unpredictability that even Victor underestimates. While Victor sees her as a temporary asset, Patty sees something completely different: an opportunity. As the plan begins to unfold, Patty does what she is known for. She doesn't follow a straightforward path. Instead, she approaches the situation in her own strange and unsettling way, making everything more complicated than Victor anticipated. There are signs that things are already not going exactly as planned. The situation around Jack begins to shift in subtle but noticeable ways. Confusion starts building, trust begins to weaken, and tension slowly creeps into his marriage. But the exact cause is not clear to everyone yet. Victor, however, believes everything is moving according to his design. From his perspective, the pieces are falling into place exactly how he intended. But what Victor fails to realize is that once someone like Patty is involved, control becomes an illusion. Because Patty doesn't just follow instructions, she interprets them. And sometimes, her interpretation leads her in directions that even the person who hired her cannot predict. At this point, Victor still feels confident. He believes he is in control of the situation, pulling strings from behind the scenes. But what he doesn't see yet is that this decision may not just affect Jack, it could eventually come back to impact Victor himself in ways he never expected. And in Genoa City, when secrets start building up, they rarely stay hidden for long. As Victor continues to believe everything is moving according to his plan, Patty begins to show a side that makes the entire situation more unpredictable than expected. In Genoa City, nothing stays quiet for long, and this time is no different. Patty doesn't behave like someone who is just passing through town. Instead of taking the money and disappearing, she starts settling in. She moves around with confidence, acting like she belongs there, even though most people clearly don't trust her presence. Victor assumed this part would be simple. In his mind, Patty would complete the job, take the payment, and vanish without leaving any trace. But that is not what happens. Instead, Patty makes it clear that she is not in any rush to leave Genoa City. She is staying, and that changes everything. At the same time, the situation around Jack Abbott begins to feel different. Small cracks start forming in his personal life. Nothing is fully visible yet,
but there is tension, moments of confusion, misunderstandings, and emotional distance that weren't there before.
Jack himself starts noticing that something feels off, even if he can't clearly explain what it is. What makes it worse is that Jack has no idea where it is coming from. To him, everything seems random, like small issues piling up at once. But in reality, there is a hidden pattern forming behind the scenes. Victor, on the other hand, watches everything from a distance. He believes the pressure is working exactly as intended. From his perspective, Jack's marriage is slowly becoming unstable, and that instability is the key to weakening him further.
Victor remains confident that his plan is unfolding perfectly. But Patty is not just following a script.
She starts making her own decisions within the situation. Instead of staying completely hidden, she begins to position herself closer to the center of attention. It is subtle at first, but noticeable enough for people around her to start questioning what she is really doing in town.
There is something unsettling about the way Patty behaves.
She is calm, almost too calm, as if she is not just participating in a plan but enjoying the environment she has created around herself. That behavior begins to raise quiet concerns, even if no one is openly confronting her yet.
Victor still believes he can control the outcome, but Patty's decision to stay changes the dynamic completely.
Now, instead of being a temporary piece in a scheme, she becomes a permanent factor in the equation.
And that makes everything harder to predict.
Meanwhile, Jack continues to feel the pressure building in his personal life. The emotional distance and confusion around him are growing, and although he tries to ignore it, the instability is becoming harder to dismiss. Every day brings a slightly different version of tension, and nothing feels fully stable anymore.
What Jack doesn't realize is that the situation is being influenced from multiple directions. Not everything is random, and not everything is visible.
There are hidden forces working quietly behind the scenes, shaping outcomes without revealing themselves. Victor believes he is still in control of those forces.
But control in Genoa City is always temporary.
The more people believe they are winning, the more dangerous the situation becomes. And now, with Patty choosing to stay instead of leaving, the entire plan begins to shift into something more complicated than Victor originally intended.
What was supposed to be a controlled operation is slowly turning into something unpredictable. Because in Genoa City, once chaos starts building, it rarely stays contained for long.
As the days go by in Genoa City, the tension around Jack Abbott's personal life continues to grow in ways that are becoming harder to ignore.
At first, it all seemed like small misunderstandings, minor moments of distance, slight confusion, and emotional friction that could easily be brushed off as normal relationship issues.
But now, those small cracks are starting to form something much deeper. Jack begins to notice that things don't feel as stable as they used to.
Conversations at home feel different.
The emotional connection that once felt natural now feels slightly off, almost like something is interfering with the flow of his life.
It's not one single event, it's a pattern of discomfort that keeps repeating in different forms. What makes it more frustrating for Jack is the lack of a clear explanation.
There is no obvious reason for the change, no single moment he can point to and say, "This is where it started." Instead, it feels like a slow shift, quiet but steady. Meanwhile, Patty continues to remain in Genoa City, and her presence becomes more noticeable in subtle ways. She is not openly causing chaos in a dramatic sense, but she doesn't need to. Her influence is indirect, almost invisible, yet still effective enough to create confusion around Jack's personal life. Patty's behavior remains calm, almost controlled, but there is something unsettling about it. She observes more than she speaks. She moves through situations carefully, as if she is aware of every reaction her actions are creating. It is this quiet confidence that makes her presence even more unpredictable. Victor, on the other hand, continues to watch everything unfold from a distance. From his perspective, things are progressing exactly as planned. He believes the emotional pressure on Jack is increasing, and that the foundation of his personal life is slowly weakening. But even Victor does not fully understand the ripple effects of his decision. Because what starts as a targeted plan does not stay contained. Once emotions, relationships, and trust are involved, even small disruptions can grow into something much larger.
And that is exactly what is beginning to happen now. Jack, though unaware of the full picture, starts becoming more alert.
Something inside him begins to question the timing of everything.
The changes are too consistent, too coordinated to feel completely random.
Even if he cannot prove anything, a sense of doubt starts forming in his mind. At first, he tries to ignore it. He tells himself that stress and personal pressure might be influencing his perception.
But the feeling does not go away.
Instead, it grows stronger over time. In situations like this, suspicion does not appear suddenly, it builds slowly.
And once it starts forming, it becomes difficult to stop.
Victor remains confident that his plan is still under control, but control is starting to feel more like an illusion than a reality. The more people become involved, the more unpredictable the outcome becomes.
Patty's decision to stay in Genoa City continues to complicate everything.
What was supposed to be a short-term arrangement is now turning into a long-term problem. And with that, the original plan begins to lose its clarity. Jack is now standing in the middle of something he cannot fully see or understand. He knows something is wrong, but he does not yet know where it is coming from or who is truly behind it.
And in Genoa City, that kind of uncertainty is often the beginning of something much bigger.
Because when trust starts to break, the truth always finds a way to surface, one way or another.
In Genoa City, every plan that looks perfect on the surface eventually faces reality.
And for Victor Newman, that reality is beginning to feel slightly less controllable than he expected.
At first, Victor remains confident. In his mind, everything is still unfolding according to his design.
Jack Abbott is under pressure, his personal life is showing signs of strain, and the emotional stability Victor wanted to disrupt is slowly becoming weaker.
From Victor's point of view, that alone is enough to consider the plan successful so far. But what Victor doesn't fully account for is how unpredictable people can be once emotions, fear, and hidden agendas start mixing together. Patty's continued presence in Genoa City is now becoming more than just a detail, it's becoming a factor that cannot be ignored.
She is no longer acting like someone who simply completed a task and moved on. Instead, she is embedded in the environment, watching, reacting, and adjusting in ways that are difficult to measure. Victor begins to notice small inconsistencies.
Things are not unfolding in a clean, linear way.
Instead, the situation around Jack feels more scattered, more emotionally unstable than structured. That is where the first hint of concern begins to surface, even if Victor refuses to fully admit it to himself. Because Victor Newman does not like the idea of losing control. At the Newman ranch, Victor tries to maintain his usual composure. He continues to believe that people are reacting exactly as he intended. But beneath that confidence, there is a subtle shift.
He starts asking slightly more precise questions. He starts observing details more carefully.
And most importantly, he begins to pay attention to Patty in a way he didn't before. Patty, however, does not behave like someone under pressure.
If anything, she seems more relaxed than ever. That calmness itself becomes unsettling.
She is not rushing. She is not panicking. She is simply existing in the middle of chaos as if she belongs there.
And that raises questions Victor does not openly express, but definitely begins to think about.
Meanwhile, Jack Abbott continues to feel the emotional strain growing around him. The instability in his personal life is no longer something he can dismiss as coincidence.
The tension is now consistent enough that it starts affecting his judgment and focus. Even in quiet moments, there is a sense that something is not aligned the way it should be. Still, Jack does not have a clear target for his suspicion. He senses interference, but he cannot identify its source.
That uncertainty creates frustration, and frustration slowly turns into caution. At the same time, Nikki Newman begins to notice changes as well. Nikki has always been highly perceptive when it comes to Victor's behavior. Over the years, she has learned how to read his patterns, especially when he is involved in something he prefers not to fully disclose.
And this time, something feels different even to her. There are small inconsistencies in Victor's behavior.
Moments where he is slightly more guarded.
Conversations that feel intentionally vague.
And a general sense that something is being kept just beneath the surface. Nikki does not confront him immediately, but she begins to observe more closely. She also finds herself increasingly uncomfortable with the direction things seem to be heading. Her concern is not just about Victor's involvement, it is about the potential consequences of his actions spreading beyond control. Because in Genoa City, when Victor gets involved in personal conflicts, the fallout rarely stays contained to just one target. It spreads. Victor, however, still believes he is ahead of everyone. He sees himself as the one shaping the outcome, guiding events from behind the scenes. But what he fails to realize is that influence is not the same as control. Once multiple people begin reacting independently, the original plan starts to fracture. And that is exactly what is beginning to happen. Patty's behavior remains the most unpredictable element in the entire situation. She is not openly challenging Victor, but she is also not behaving like someone who is simply following instructions. Instead, she appears to be navigating the situation on her own terms, adjusting her position based on what benefits her most. That alone introduces uncertainty into Victor's carefully constructed plan. Because the moment a variable stops being predictable, the entire equation changes. Jack's growing suspicion, Nikki's quiet observation, and Patty's unpredictable presence are now forming a triangle of instability around Victor's original scheme. Each of them is moving independently, yet all are connected through the consequences of Victor's decision. And Victor is starting to sense that connection, but not fully understand it yet. The real problem is not what has already happened. It is what is about to happen next. Because in Genoa City, once doubt enters the picture, it does not stay isolated. It spreads through relationships, decisions, and loyalties until nothing remains as stable as it once seemed. And Victor Newman, for the first time in a long time, may be standing in the early stages of a situation that even he cannot fully control anymore. By now, the situation in Genoa City is no longer something that can stay hidden or controlled. What started as a carefully planned move by Victor Newman has turned into something far more unstable, where every decision seems to create a new problem instead of solving an old one. Victor still tries to maintain control, but even he can feel it slipping through his hands. At first, he believed the plan involving Patty would be simple. A clean disruption in Jack Abbott's personal life, followed by a quiet exit. That was the expectation. That was the logic behind the entire move. But reality has proven to be far more complicated. Patty's presence in Genoa City is now impossible to ignore. She is no longer just a background piece in Victor's strategy. She has become an active force inside the situation. And the most dangerous part is that her behavior does not follow any predictable pattern. She doesn't act like someone who is being controlled. She doesn't behave like someone waiting for instructions. Instead, she moves with her own rhythm, reacting to situations in ways that even Victor cannot fully anticipate. And that creates a new level of uncertainty. Jack Abbott, meanwhile, is no longer just sensing that something is wrong, he is actively questioning it. The emotional strain he has been feeling is now turning into suspicion. The inconsistencies in his life are too frequent to ignore, and he starts to believe that something deeper is happening behind the scenes. Even though he does not have proof, Jack begins to connect the emotional instability in his life with something external. A hidden influence. A silent interference. Something that is deliberately pushing his world off balance. That suspicion slowly builds inside him. At the same time, Nikki Newman is no longer just observing from a distance. Her concern about Victor's involvement has grown stronger. She can feel that something serious is unfolding, and she does not like the direction it is heading. Nikki knows Victor well enough to understand when he is operating in secrecy. And this time, his silence feels heavier than usual. There is a sense that he is holding back information, not just from others, but possibly from her as well. That creates tension between them, even without a direct confrontation. Victor, however, remains convinced that he can still manage the situation. In his mind, he believes he is simply dealing with temporary instability. He assumes that once things settle, everything will fall back into place as he intended. But Genoa City rarely works that way. Because once multiple people become emotionally involved in a hidden conflict, the situation stops being linear. It becomes reactive. One decision triggers another. One suspicion leads to another. And soon, control becomes more of an illusion than a reality. Patty's role in all of this becomes even more significant. Whether intentionally or not, she has become the center of unpredictability in the entire situation. Her actions, her choices, and her refusal to simply disappear are all contributing to the growing instability around Victor's original plan. And that is where the real problem begins. Victor realizes, slowly, and not willingly, that things are no longer unfolding exactly as he intended.
There are too many moving parts now. Too many people reacting independently.
Too many emotional consequences spreading across relationships that were never meant to be involved.
Jack is becoming more alert. Nikki is becoming more suspicious. And Patty is becoming more unpredictable.
All of these forces are now intersecting around Victor's original decision. And for the first time, Victor Newman is not in full control of the outcome. The final truth becomes clear in a subtle but powerful way. In Genoa City, even the most carefully designed plan can collapse when people start acting on their own instincts instead of expectations. What Victor thought was a controlled move against Jack has now turned into a situation that could potentially backfire in ways he never prepared for. Because once trust is broken and suspicion spreads, there is no simple way to restore balance. And as everything continues to build toward its breaking point, one thing becomes certain.
This is no longer just Victor's plan anymore. It is everyone's problem now.